The greatest mistake a man can make is believing that being always available makes him unforgettable, when in reality, it is the man who has the courage to disappear who never truly leaves her mind. There is something deeply fascinating about the way the human mind works when something it once had easy access to suddenly becomes less available. This is not a trick, not a game, and not manipulation. This is psychology in its purest and most honest form, and once you understand it, your entire perspective on attraction, value, and human behavior will shift forever. Think about the last time you wanted something you could not easily have. Maybe it was a job, a goal, a dream, or even a person. The moment it felt slightly out of reach, your mind did not let it go. Instead, it held on tighter. It replayed moments. It searched for meaning in every small detail. It created stories, possibilities, and emotions around that one thing simply because it was no longer guaranteed. This is the foundation of desire, and it lives in every human being, whether they are aware of it or not. From the perspective of female psychology, this truth runs even deeper. A woman's emotional world is rich, layered, and incredibly intuitive. She feels things at a frequency most people never fully understand. When a man is constantly present, always available, always responding, always giving his attention without pause, her mind does not have space to miss him. And here is the truth that changes everything. You cannot deeply desire what you never lose. You cannot truly crave what is always sitting right in front of you. The mind needs contrast to feel the weight of something's value. When a man pulls back, not from weakness or pettiness, but from a grounded place of self-respect and personal purpose, something extraordinary happens inside a woman's mind. The space he leaves behind does not become empty. It becomes filled with thoughts of him. She begins to reflect on conversations. She notices small things she overlooked before. She starts to feel something she had perhaps taken for granted, and that feeling grows louder the quieter he becomes. This is not weakness on her part. This is human psychology responding exactly as it was designed to respond. The most powerful men in any woman's memory are rarely the ones who gave everything away freely. They are the ones who had a life, a mission, a standard, and a sense of self that existed completely outside of her. They are the ones who made her feel that being chosen by them actually meant something because they were not choosing everyone. When a man has boundaries, when he has moments where he steps back into his own world, when he is not endlessly available, he communicates something without saying a single word. He communicates that he has value, that his time and energy are not desperate resources being thrown at whoever will accept them, and that being in his presence is something worth earning and appreciating. This is where so many people misunderstand the concept of pulling back. It is not about playing cold. It is not about being cruel or withholding love as punishment. True pulling back comes from a man who is genuinely invested in his own growth, his own peace, and his own standards. He is not sitting somewhere strategically counting the hours before he responds. He is actually living. He is building something. He is working on himself. And that genuine fullness of life is more attractive than any perfectly crafted message could ever be, because women feel the difference between a man who is pretending to be busy and a man who actually has a world worth entering. Distance, when it comes from a real place of self-worth, creates desire because it forces the other person to feel the contrast. It reminds her of what it feels like when he is present versus when he is not. It gives her emotions room to breathe, to grow, and to deepen in ways they simply cannot when everything is constant and predictable. Predictability is comfortable, but comfort rarely creates passion. It is the uncertainty, the beautiful tension of wondering that keeps the mind engaged and the heart invested. You were never meant to be someone's guaranteed convenience. You were meant to be someone's answered prayer, someone whose presence carries weight, whose silence carries meaning, and whose return feels like something worth celebrating. The moment you start living for your own purpose, protecting your own energy, and stepping back into your own greatness, you stop being something people overlook and start becoming something people cannot stop thinking about. Pull back, not to be mysterious, but to be real. Pull back, not to punish, but to protect your peace. pull back because you finally understand that a man who knows his worth never has to chase what is meant for him, and everything that is truly meant for him will always find its way. There is a version of you that has spent years giving your time, your energy, your attention, and your heart to people who never once stopped to appreciate the depth of what you were offering. You showed up consistently. You answered every call. You rearranged your schedule, your emotions, and sometimes even your values, just to make others feel comfortable in your presence. And at the end of it all, you were left wondering why none of it ever felt like enough, why the people you gave the most to seemed to value you the least, and why the more you gave, the less you were appreciated. The answer is painful, but it is also liberating once you truly receive it. Availability without selectivity destroys your value in the eyes of others, not because people are cruel, but because the human mind is wired to assign worth based on scarcity and effort. What is always there is rarely treasured. What must be earned is never forgotten. From the lens of female psychology, a woman's intuition is one of the most powerful forces in the world of human connection. She does not just hear what is being said, she feels what is being communicated beneath every action, every pattern, and every choice. And when a man makes himself available to everyone, when his time flows freely to whoever asks for it, when his attention is scattered across dozens of people and places without discrimination, something registers deep in her intuition. Not consciously, perhaps, but it registers. She begins to sense that being chosen by him does not actually mean very much because he chooses freely and without standard. The feeling of being special begins to fade, even if she cannot explain exactly why. But when a man is selective, when his time is clearly precious, when his energy is invested with intention, and his presence is not something handed out carelessly, the entire emotional dynamic shifts. Suddenly, being in his world feels like something rare. Suddenly, his attention feels like something meaningful. Suddenly, the woman who captures his focus understands on a deeply emotional level that she is not just another person in a long line of people. She is someone he actually chose, and that choice carries weight because it is not something he gives away to everyone. This is the difference between being available and being valuable. Availability says, I am here for whoever wants me. Value says, I am here for what truly deserves my presence. One depletes you, the other defines you. One leaves you empty and overlooked. The other fills you with a sense of purpose and attracts the kind of connection that actually honors who you are. The right person, the one who is genuinely aligned with your energy and your standard, does not need you to be available around the clock. They need you to be real, to be grounded, and to be someone who respects their own time enough to protect it. When you stop bending yourself into endless availability for people who were never meant for your highest chapter, you create space for something far greater to enter. You create room for a connection that does not drain you, but instead elevates you. You make space for someone who sees your value, not because you told them about it, but because your choices, your boundaries, and your energy demonstrated it without a single word. Starting today, let your time mean something. Let your presence carry weight. Stop flooding people with access to you before they have shown you they are worthy of it. A river that flows into every direction eventually loses its power, but a river that moves with intention, that knows where it is going and refuses to be redirected by every obstacle, becomes unstoppable. Become that river. Move with purpose. Protect your energy like it is the most precious resource you own, because it is. The right person will not be intimidated by your standards. They will be inspired by them. They will rise to meet you, not because you demanded it, but because they recognize that what you carry is worth the effort. And they will never take your presence for granted because they will have experienced what it feels like when you are not available to everyone, and they will know that having you in their life is something to protect and never abuse. You were not created to be everyone's option. You were created to be the right person's everything, and the moment you start living like that, truth belongs to you, everything around you will begin to shift in ways you never imagined possible. If this message reached something deep inside you and made you see yourself differently, then you are exactly where you need to be. Subscribe to this channel right now because every single week we bring you the kind of truth that rewires your mindset, elevates your standard, and reminds you of the powerful person you were always meant to become. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and never miss a message that was created specifically for your growth. There is a kind of power that most people never discover because they are too busy filling every moment with words, explanations, justifications, and noise. They believe that in order to be understood, they must speak. They believe that in order to be valued, they must explain themselves. They believe that in order to win, they must argue, defend, and prove. But the most magnetic, most emotionally compelling, and most unforgettable people in this world have discovered something that completely contradicts this belief. They have discovered that silence, used with intention and grounded in self-worth, is the most powerful language a human being can ever speak. From the depth of female psychology, a woman's emotional intelligence is wired to read between the lines of everything. She does not just process what is said to her, she processes what is not said. She feels the energy behind a pause. She notices the meaning inside a moment of stillness. She reads the temperature of a room not from the words being spoken, but from the space that exists between them. This is why silence from a grounded, self-assured person does not feel like absence to her. It feels like presence, a different kind of presence, one that is heavy with meaning and impossible to ignore. When you have been hurt and you choose silence over retaliation, you communicate something that no perfectly constructed argument ever could. You communicate that you are too anchored in your own peace to be pulled into chaos. When you have been disrespected and you respond not with anger, but with a quiet withdrawal of your energy, you send a message that lands in the deepest part of a woman's psychology. You tell her without a single word that you know your worth, that you do not need to fight for your value because your value was never up for debate, and that your peace means more to you than winning any argument ever could. This is where so many people give away their power without realizing it. The moment you over-explain yourself, you suggest that you are not sure your actions were justified. The moment you beg for understanding, you communicate that you need their validation to feel secure. The moment you fill every silence with desperate words, you reveal that the quiet makes you uncomfortable, and that discomfort tells the other person that they hold more power in the dynamic than you do. But when you are comfortable in silence, when you can walk away without a speech, when you can let your absence do the talking, you completely shift the emotional balance of any relationship or interaction. A woman who is deeply in tune with her emotions will tell you that the moments she felt most drawn to someone were rarely the moments filled with grand declarations. They were the quiet moments, the moments where something was communicated without being spoken, the moments where a look, a pause, or a deliberate withdrawal of energy said more than hours of conversation ever managed to say. Silence in those moments did not feel cold. It felt powerful. It felt like depth. And depth is one of the most irresistible qualities a human being can possess because it suggests there is always more to discover, always more beneath the surface, always more waiting to be understood. Your silence also protects you in ways that your words cannot. Every time you speak in anger, you hand the other person ammunition. Every time you overshare your emotions before someone has earned the right to hold them, you make yourself vulnerable to people who have not yet proven they deserve that access. But when you practice the discipline of silence, when you learn to feel deeply without immediately expressing everything you feel, you develop an inner world so rich and so self-contained that people are naturally drawn to try to understand you. You become someone worth pursuing because you are not an open book that anyone can read in a single sitting. You are a story that reveals itself slowly to those who are patient and worthy enough to stay. Starting from this moment, stop using your words to chase what your energy should be attracting. Stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided how they see you. Stop arguing with those who are not genuinely interested in understanding you. Let your silence be your statement. Let your stillness be your strength. Let the way you carry yourself, the way you move through rooms without needing to announce yourself, the way you withdraw your energy without drama or performance, Speak the truth about who you are more clearly than any sentence ever could. The people who are meant to understand you will feel your silence and lean closer. The people who are not meant for your journey will be unsettled by it and walk away. Either outcome is a gift because both outcomes bring clarity, and clarity is the most valuable thing you can have as you build a life that is truly aligned with the person you are becoming. There is a truth about human psychology that most people spend their entire lives learning the hard way, and it is this: the person who is willing to walk away always holds more power than the person who is desperate to stay. Not because walking away is a strategy designed to manipulate, and not because leaving makes someone cold or emotionally unavailable, but because the willingness to walk away is the ultimate demonstration of self-worth, and self-worth is the single most attractive quality a human being can ever carry into any relationship, any room, or any moment of their life. From the landscape of female psychology, this truth operates at a frequency that goes far beyond logic. A woman does not just think about the people in her life. She feels them. She replays them. She processes them in layers that exist beneath conscious thought, in the quiet moments before sleep, in the middle of ordinary afternoons when something small triggers a memory, in the emotional spaces that no conversation ever fully reaches. And the person who occupies those spaces most powerfully is rarely the one who stayed too long, gave too much too soon, or made themselves so permanently available that their presence became background noise. The person who lives rent-free in her deepest thoughts is the one who had the dignity, the courage, and the self-respect to walk away. When a man walks away without bitterness, without a dramatic speech, without begging or bargaining or collapsing into desperation, something profound happens inside the mind of the woman he leaves behind. The silence he creates does not feel like relief. It feels like a question she cannot stop asking herself. It feels like an itch she cannot locate. It feels like a door that closed before she fully understood what was on the other side. And the human mind, especially the emotionally intelligent female mind, cannot easily make peace with an unanswered question. It replays. It reconstructs. It searches every memory for clues about what she missed, what she overlooked, and what she perhaps undervalued when it was still within her reach. This is not manipulation. This is the natural consequence of someone honoring their own worth so completely that they refuse to shrink themselves to fit into a space that was never designed for their greatness. When a person walks away from something that does not serve them, they are not trying to create longing in someone else. They are simply choosing themselves, and that choice, that radical act of self-selection, radiates an energy that is impossible to forget because it is so rare. Most people stay too long. Most people tolerate too much. Most people convince themselves that holding on is strength, when in reality, the truest strength has always lived in the ability to let go without losing yourself in the process. From a psychological standpoint, what walking away does to the mind of another person is deeply connected to the principle of loss aversion. The human brain is wired to feel the pain of losing something far more intensely than it feels the pleasure of having it. This means that your absence will always register more powerfully than your constant presence ever did. The moments after you leave are when your true value finally becomes visible, when everything you brought to the table becomes undeniable, when every quality that was taken for granted suddenly becomes the standard that nothing else can meet. You do not become more valuable when you leave. You were always that valuable. Walking away simply forces the truth to the surface, where it can no longer be ignored or underestimated. The man who walks away with his head high, his peace intact, and his purpose firmly in front of him does not spend his days wondering if he made the right choice. He already knows. He knows because he chose himself in a moment when choosing himself was difficult, and that decision becomes the foundation of every confident step he takes afterward. He grows, he builds, he becomes. And the woman whose mind he occupies is not thinking about a man who crumbled when things got hard. She is thinking about a man who stood tall when he had every reason to fall apart, and that image of quiet, unshakable dignity is one the mind simply cannot release. Walk away from what does not honor you. Walk away from what requires you to constantly prove your worth. Walk away from comfort zones that have become cages. Walk away not with anger, but with grace. Not with revenge in your heart, but with vision in your eyes. Not because you want to be missed, but because you finally love yourself enough to stop accepting less than what you deserve. The right life, the right energy, and the right connection will never require you to abandon yourself to keep it, and anything that does was never truly yours to hold. If these words stirred something powerful inside you and reminded you of the standard you were always meant to carry, then you are exactly where you belong. Subscribe to this channel right now because this is the space where mindset shifts happen, where self-worth is rebuilt, and where the truth about attraction, psychology, and personal power is delivered every single week without compromise. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and join a community of people who are done settling and finally ready to become everything they were created to be.